In 2010, the US military discovered it could not build an F-35 without China's permission. Nobody had noticed until a Chinese fishing boat started a diplomatic incident. The boat collided with Japanese Coast Guard ships near disputed islands in the East China Sea. Japan arrested the captain. China demanded his release. Then, quietly, shipments of a material called rare earths stopped leaving Chinese ports. No announcement, no official embargo, just paperwork that slowed to a halt. The price of neodymium jumped from $15 per kilogram to over $300. Defense contractors in the United States started calling Washington. Each F-35 contains approximately 900 pounds of rare earth materials. Each Virginia-class submarine contains over 9,000 pounds. The guidance systems on Tomahawk cruise missiles run on rare earth magnets. None of it could be sourced elsewhere. There was nowhere else. One fishing boat had just exposed a dependency buried inside every advanced weapon system, every electric vehicle, and every smartphone on Earth. The weapon had no name. Most of the people it threatened had never heard of it. This is the story of how one country spent 30 years building the most invisible strategic advantage in modern history, and why the rest of the world handed it to them willingly. 17 elements, unglamorous names. Neodymium, dysprosium, cerium, terbium, lanthanum. Most people encounter them every day without knowing it. The vibration motor in your phone uses a neodymium magnet. So does the speaker. The motor in every electric vehicle runs on a neodymium iron boron magnet. Tesla, BYD, Rivian, all of them. Wind turbines, MRI machines, night vision goggles, laser guidance systems on precision munitions, all of them depend on the same 17 elements. The reason is physics. Neodymium magnets are roughly 10 times stronger than the best conventional iron magnets. That strength lets engineers build motors that are smaller, lighter, and more powerful than any alternative. There is no substitute with the same performance in a compact package. The physics does not allow for one. Here is what the name gets wrong. Rare earths are not rare. Cerium is more common in Earth's crust than copper. The problem is concentration. Rare earth elements are dispersed in tiny amounts across enormous volumes of rock. Extracting usable quantities requires processing massive amounts of ore for very little return. It is expensive, technically demanding, and it produces significant toxic and radioactive waste. The United States has rare earth deposits. So does Australia, Brazil, and Canada. But China controls approximately 36% of known global reserves. And yet, China processes roughly 90% of the world's rare earths. That gap is not geological. It is a choice, and it took 30 years to build. In 1987, Deng Xiaoping stood inside a rare earth processing facility in Baotou, Inner Mongolia. Baotou sits above Bayan Obo, the largest single rare earth deposit ever found. He said this: "The Middle East has oil. China has rare earth." That line is often quoted as a boast, but it was not a boast, it was an instruction. Through the 1990s, China scaled up rare earth production at a pace no other country could match. State subsidies drove the cost of Chinese rare earths below what any private company elsewhere could produce profitably. This was the China price, a deliberate strategy to flood the market and make competition economically impossible. It worked. Mountain Pass Mine in California was the world's largest rare earth producer through the 1980s. The United States was, at that point, the global leader in rare earth production. By the late 1990s, Mountain Pass could not compete with Chinese pricing. A pipeline spill of radioactive wastewater accelerated the closure. In 2002, Mountain Pass shut down. The same story played out in Australia, South Africa, and Brazil. By the mid-2000s, the world had handed rare earth production to China, not by policy, not by treaty, by price. China's share of global rare earth production climbed above 90%, but the mining was never the point. While the world watched the price war, China was building something that would matter far more. Mining rare earths is straightforward. You dig, you blast, you haul. Separating them is something else entirely. Rare earth elements occur together inside the same ore. Getting neodymium out means separating it from a dozen other elements with nearly identical chemical behavior. The process involves hundreds of solvent extraction stages, specialized acids, carefully controlled reactions repeated at industrial scale. It also produces radioactive waste. Thorium and uranium occur naturally alongside rare earth ore. Processing means dealing with what comes with it. No country wanted to build this industry. The economics were marginal, the environmental liability was enormous, and the chemistry was extraordinarily complex. China built it anyway. Over 30 years, China built the knowledge and infrastructure to refine rare earths at a scale nobody else approached. Nobody came close. The result? Even countries that mine their own ore still need China to finish the job. MP Materials mines rare earths at Mountain Pass in California. Until 2020, it was shipping its concentrate to China for processing. Lynas, Australia's largest producer, processes in Malaysia. Independent of China, but a fraction of global capacity. In December 2023, China clarified exactly how seriously it takes this advantage. It banned the export of rare earth separation and processing technology, not the materials, the knowledge of how to process them. Chinese companies are now legally prohibited from sharing the chemistry with the outside world. That is not a trade restriction. That is a vault door closing. Back to September 2010. The fishing boat dispute has become a diplomatic crisis, and the rare earth shipments to Japan have stopped. Japan was the largest consumer of rare earth magnets in the world. The Toyota Prius motor runs on neodymium magnets. So does every Hitachi industrial motor. So do the speakers in most Sony electronics. As prices spiked, Japan's manufacturing sector went into emergency mode. Dysprosium, used to keep neodymium magnets stable at high temperatures, hit $1,400 per kilogram. Toyota and Honda began redesigning motors to reduce rare earth content. Japan signed an emergency supply agreement with Lynas in Australia. The Japanese government launched a program to search the Pacific seafloor for rare earth deposits. They found them. Near a remote island called Minamitorishima, geologists identified seafloor deposits estimated to supply global demand for decades. The WTO ruled against China's export quotas in 2014. China eased the restrictions, but the revelation was already permanent. Every government that had ignored supply chain risk now had a specific date to point to. September 2010, a fishing boat. $1,400 per kilogram of dysprosium. The weapon existed. That much was now clear. What nobody fully grasped was that China was still loading it. For decades, China's rare earth dominance was passive. It did not need to threaten anyone. It simply was the supplier. The leverage was structural. That changed in 2023. In August of that year, China imposed export controls on gallium and germanium. Both are critical for semiconductor manufacturing, solar panels, and night vision equipment. The controls required exporters to apply for government licenses that China could choose not to grant. In April 2025, as trade tensions with the United States escalated, China moved on rare earths directly. Export controls on 7 categories: dysprosium, terbium, gadolinium, samarium, lutetium, scandium, and yttrium. These are not obscure elements. They are the specific materials inside F-35 guidance systems, Tomahawk cruise missiles, and Virginia-class submarines. Each one now requires an export license from Beijing. The Pentagon does not have an alternative supply chain for any of them at scale. This is the shift that changes everything. In 2010, China demonstrated the weapon existed by accident through a fishing boat dispute. In 2025, China demonstrated it on purpose, in direct response to American tariffs. The passive dominance is over. What replaced it is something more deliberate, and the West, for the first time, has no comfortable answer. The response from the West has been real. It has also been slow. MP Materials operates Mountain Pass in California. In 2023, it opened the first rare earth magnet factory on U.S. soil in Fort Worth, Texas. General Motors signed a deal to source rare earth magnets from MP Materials domestically. The U.S. Department of Defense has been funding rare earth processing projects since 2021. Lynas is building a processing facility in Texas, partially funded by the Pentagon. In 2024, the European Union passed the Critical Raw Materials Act. Targets for 2030. 10% of annual consumption extracted domestically. 40% processed domestically. Australia, Canada, and Japan have formed supply alliances with the United States. All of this is real, but none of it closes the gap quickly. Building rare earth processing expertise from scratch takes a minimum of 10 to 15 years. The EU's 40% domestic processing target still leaves Europe relying on China for the majority of its rare earth supply through the end of this decade. The US is further along, not far enough. The processing moat China spent 30 years building cannot be crossed in 5. And the things already designed with rare earths inside them do not wait. Every EV motor rolling off a production line today contains a neodymium magnet. Every F-35 in service carries 900 pounds of rare earth materials. Every MRI machine in every hospital, every wind turbine, every smartphone in every pocket. Each one is a link in the same chain, and that chain runs through China. The mining can eventually happen elsewhere. The processing will take a decade to rebuild. Unlike oil, which gets burned and replaced, rare earth magnets sit inside machines for 20-30 years. The dependency does not end when you build the product. It began when you designed it. Deng Xiaoping stood in Baotou in 1987 and saw what nobody else was looking at. It took the world until 2010 to believe him. It may take until 2035 to do something about it. The weapon has no explosion, no visible detonation. It works by being inside everything already. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to the channel. It supports us a ton. See you in the next video.